Didn't know that God was going to have a message in this experience. Check this out. So on this plane, I'm looking at lightning so close. Hey, we back. Family, friends, loved ones, you already know who you are. I love you all, no matter what the case may be. Got a story, man. By the title of it, man, this was an experience in my life. So it's like a story time. It was life changing, but the message that came out of it, I gotta share. Form of my testimony. This is the form of uplifting you. This is something that I want you to relate to, and I want you to hear because it's so deep. I've used it in presentations, transparently and spiritually, depending on the capacity of where I am and who I'm talking to. If it's in the schools, in a business meeting, it's at a business conference, or it's in the temple, either or, religious based institutions. But I want to share this story, man. It was in 2009. My best friend was staying in Houston, Texas, right? I was staying in St. Louis. I was still chasing my college dreams. And if you didn't know, I did accomplish those. And it was, I was older, but I accomplished those. That's another story, but back to the story. So he was staying there. And I was flying there to spend maybe a week down there just for, just to relax and go to Houston. I always loved Houston, even though I stay in Dallas now. I loved Houston because Houston got palm trees. That's just different. It kind of gives you a mirror of LA, California, has pretty waters and then has palm trees. But at this time I was flying to Houston. And as we're flying to Houston, right, it's a 2-hour flight from St. Louis. And, is it a 2-hour flight? Yeah, I think, 3-hour flight. It may be a 3-hour flight. 2 or 3, I forget. It was in 2009. We're in 2021 now. So we were flying, and I was flying by myself, but we, as being a passenger of this flight, we were flying. And it was a smooth flight, and all of a sudden, maybe 30 to 40 minutes or an hour prior to flying, we reached this rainy state, right? And it wasn't just regular rain. See, at this time, we were flying into a hurricane. Let that settle for a second. We were flying into a hurricane. And at that very moment, I was like, this plane can have some big trouble because the hurricane was hard rain, right? And hard thunder. And I was like, I know this ain't the end for me. It's too much prophecy over my life. I was like, if this plane do whatever, I'm gonna live to tell the story. That's my attitude at the moment, right? And like I said, this is years prior to me thinking, having the thought process that I have now. Because I've developed so much more over time. But I can remember being on that plane. And I heard the voice of God. And he said, do you remember what I told the disciples when we were in the boat and there came a storm and they were scared? I said, I remember. He said, we're going to the other side. You're going to the other side. You will make it to Houston. So I just sat calmly, right? Didn't know that God was going to have a message in this experience. Check this out. So on this plane, I'm looking at lightning so close. I am looking at lightning and the darkness of this cloud. We're in this thing. Like, there's no going back. It's stuff flashing, and you hear just thunderstorms, and you can see it so close. It was people around was afraid. But because of that conversation I had with God, I wasn't. Let me tell you why. So I'm finna bring this thing back full circle. So I remember the pilot saying, everybody be calm, what we're going to do. And this could be common, but it's a message in this thing. If you've ever been in this situation, you know. He said, be calm. There's going to be a lot of turbulence. Turbulence, like, for real. Like, you literally would think, like, this plane is finna fall out the sky. He said, it's going to be a lot of turbulence, but we need to go higher than normal. I'm like, what? He said, we cannot land. We're here. He said, we've been flying this thing for a long time. We're here, and we got a little while to go, going, down to where we need to go to land in Houston. Be calm, but we have to go higher. Your ears might pop and all this good stuff. He talking to us right over the mic. So we literally, you could feel the plane going higher, right? We reached, I don't know the number altitude that we went up. But we went high enough to where we were literally so high. We were so high flying in this plane that when you're looking out your window, you can literally see the storm cloud. The same storm that we were in, storm cloud that we were in, that was hovering over Houston for us to land. We were above it. And when we were above it, it was peaceful. It was pure sky, calmness. And we were like flying around in the atmosphere of that thing. So until it calmed down, right? We ended up standing on the plane a little bit longer than normal because we had to wait for it to calm down for us to land. But I can remember looking down at the storm cloud and seeing how dark it was and seeing the lightning strike in between it. You could see this. I was like, if you were in Houston or on the ground, we were above. So if this mic is the storm cloud and this is ground, we were up here. We were above the cloud. I know people like, of common sense would say, yeah, you're above the cloud, it's going to be clear. And it was clear. But this is the message that God gave me. Back then, 2009. When you're going through life and storms are ahead, you have to mentally live above the cloud. Live above the storm cloud. Hope that hits somebody. Hope that helps somebody. You have to mentally if you're mentally or physically, if you're physically in the situation and it's chaotic, to reach that pinnacle of thinking clearly, of figuring it out, of moving forward, of getting your point across the right way with no anger, no strife, you have to live above the storm cloud. Wow. I physically experienced that moment for God to give me a thought process, a mental enrichment, a help, a push for the future down the road. I didn't know that I'll be doing what I'm doing now. I didn't know that I'll have a camera, I have a mic, and I'll have a voice to speak to people and a boldness to speak to people in all type of different places, from different ages, from literally being a child to an adult. He was embedding that in me. It was always in me, but he was manifesting that thing to come out of me because it was growing. It was a plant, a seed that he put in me, and it was growing. But it was certain experiences I had to go through, and that was one of them. To understand how I would have to mentally think, which is relevant to this crisis that we're living in right now with this COVID thing. But to live above the storm cloud is important. So I don't know what clouds you're in. I mean, I don't know what situation you're in and what clouds are moving forward in your life, and what thunder and turmoil is going through life. But you have to live mentally above it so that you can think clear, so you can hear the voice of the Lord, so you can hear things clearly in general, so that you can make the right decisions, the right moves, so that when you have to enter that cloud again, because we had to enter that cloud again. Now, it had stopped, not completely, but it had stopped raining as hard. Because I can remember the pilot saying, we can land now. They said it's going to be a little bit turbulence again, but we can go through this thing. We can land in this thing. So then all of a sudden we was in this clear skies, and then we start decreasing, going through, and we went through that cloud. And it was a little bit rough. It wasn't rough as it was at first. And the rain was hitting the plane very hard. But the lightning had stopped. And we went through it. And then we went through it. By the time we landed, the rain was actually slowing up. By the time my best friend picked me up at the airport, it was clear. It was back sunny. Back hot. And that thing stuck with me. And I meditated on that thing the entire time I was there. The entire time I was in Houston, I meditated on that situation. Not that I could have died. Because God already told me, you going to land. You going to the other side. You going to Houston, right? I knew when he said going to the other side, he wasn't talking about death. I knew that. He was talking about going to the location that you set out for. I knew that. But to go through that experience physically, I went through that. And it's a bunch of people out there who have been and flew in rainy situations. But this the thing, it wasn't just a storm. It was a hurricane. That's different. We were flying through a hurricane. And a message came out of that thing. It's deep, man. Like my last message, I was talking about walking on water. That was the start of a process of walking on water, because I was so calm. When I think about it, I was looking around at people, and I know they was looking at me like I was crazy, because I was in a peaceful moment, because I'd already got the message. I wasn't holding on to my seat. I wasn't doing none of that, because I got the message. And then God brought another message through that thing, moving forward in my life, on how to live above the storm cloud. I hope that helps somebody, man. I wanted to share that because I actually just relived that thing when I was going through it, but I was still yet calm. But to mentally relive it, you realize that thing was mind-blowing. And it wasn't it wasn't the only hurricane, that major hurricane that I've experienced and been. I'm going to talk about my experience of being in New York when Hurricane Sandy hit and what came out of that. That's another story for another day. But I was in New York when Sandy hit New York years ago. And I was like, but back to the Houston thing, I literally thought about that thing the entire time I was there. Even after I left. And I kept going over the thing. Kept meditating on the thing. Because I got the message, and the message just wowed me. I take things like that serious, and I always line it up with the Word of God. Not just because I was born into that organizational structure, but over my life, I will say I've experienced God for myself. And that's the difference. A lot of people say, well, that's how you was raised in it. That's why you believe in it. But that's not so, because I know people who were raised in it right along with me. And they're not nowhere in the faith category of belief that I'm in. But it's the experiences that I experienced with God. The journeys that I've taken with him, and he's shown himself to be proven to me, which causes me to be a believer. It's deep, felt. It's deep and full with so much. And if I can encourage anybody, I'll encourage you with this story. And I hope that this story helps you live above the storm cloud. Because it's real. I don't remember what that hurricane's name was at the time. I would have to look it up. But I know Hurricane Sandy in New York I was in. But whatever hurricane that was, I was on a plane. And I flew through it. And we went above it. So I can literally say I experienced being above the storm cloud. I was on the other side. While civilization was at the bottom. If you were on a plane flying to Houston during that time, you were living above your struggle. Whatever struggle that was. And even though you had to revisit that thing, emotionally, physically, whatever, we went through it and we landed on dry land perfectly, no problems. So kudos to that pilot, kudos, because it was all set up by God. Kudos to the people that were on that plane with me. If anybody that was on that plane with me, if you ever review this video, you know I'm not lying. You know that I'm telling the truth. I don't have anything else but to tell the truth. I wasn't on the plane by myself. I don't have a reason to tell a lie. There's no credit in that. But whatever that hurricane was, or whatever that storm was, that heavy storm was, I'm just remembering that the people were calling it a hurricane. Like, hurricane, wow. Could have been just a hard storm, but I believe it was a hurricane. Because that was the word that was being used. No matter what it was. I know we were in it. I seen the thunder. You could feel the rain and the turbulence through it. It was deep. It was frightening for a minute. Literally 60 seconds for me. But people on there. It was an amazing thing to experience, though. But I just went mentally back into that. But family, friends, whatever you do, man, please subscribe to the channel. Love you much. Hope this message, I know this message, it helps somebody somewhere. But I salute, as always, the divinity in you. And we will see you next time on ThinkSmart TV.